Godt nytår alle sammen, og velkommen til en ny sæson af Vi taler med. For første gang en sæson 2. Og vi starter med en engelsk episode den her gang med Patrick Bates. Og vi skal jo nok godt lige sige, at episoden er sponsoreret af DataPeeps. Dit salgsværktøj til dig, der vil have kvalificerede leads direkte ind i dit salgsteam. Men uden videre tøven, vi skifter til engelsk. Patrick, nice for having you here.
Tusind tak, Anders. Thank you for having me.
And Danish already. That's
I
amazing.
told you I'd sprinkle some in there for you, so I'm going to stick to my word.
Keep sprinkling. Cool. But just to disclaimer, you and I, we know each other for, let's say, 3 years behind when we had Startup Central. We don't have that anymore. But a lot of water have gone under the bridge and you have grown a lot. At least as it looks like. So I thought that you as an international in Denmark starting a business was a very, very nice prospect to have joining here. So should we give the listeners just a quick run of who are the person Patrick Bates?
Yeah, it's a good question. Who am I? It's quite a philosophical question. I mean, so I'm a very English bloke. I mean, I grew up in England, spent the first 18 years of my life in the UK, and I have a part of Danish in me. My mother is from Denmark, but she moved to England in the 80s, and so we were never taught Danish. It was sort of, in fact, Horsens was the only town I knew in Denmark because her family are from Horsens. Yeah, I thought you'd like that.
I do.
So yeah, my perception of Denmark was Horsens, so it was always sort of in the back of my mind. You know, Denmark, I would love to try it. Would love to kind of integrate myself and learn sort of what my heritage is, because growing up it was very English. And so like I said, first 18 years very much growing up in the UK, and then for about a year between 18 and 19 I was trying different jobs, and I was very inspired at that point by my brother, who was an entrepreneur. I mean, my father was in the army. My mother was working for the National Health Service as a physiotherapist, and my brother was this entrepreneur, and it was the first entrepreneur of the family, really. And it really inspired something in me that, you know, made me think, oh, this is possible. And so from an early age, growing up, you know, as a teenager, I tried different things. So I sort of stepped into entrepreneurship at 13 and ran around the village, knocking on different doors, trying to get them to sign up to my car washing business.
Nice.
And it was the first sort of taste I had. I had the idea. My brother helped me with my sales pitch, and then I went around knocking. Subscription focused concept, 1 wash a month. And that was my first sort of taste, and I liked the idea of it. And then when I got to 18, I tried lots of different things. I worked in a chocolate factory for a bit, making chocolate. I sold milk, you know, milk bottles door to door, like a milk delivery service. And of course, these weren't my businesses. And I tried several. And one thing I sort of found was it sort of reinstated the fact that I really want to be my own boss. I mean, they were very hardworking jobs, so that probably didn't help. The bosses weren't so great. And it made me realize that, you know, I definitely want to be an entrepreneur, but what the hell is it going to be? I didn't know what my passion was. And I think that's something that most... Yeah.
A quick question comes up to mind, because 13 and then 18, a lot of jobs. How big of an age difference is there between you and your brother? First thing, and how old are we today?
So my brother is 9 years older than me.
Yeah.
I'm actually one of 4 siblings, and I'm the youngest. So I'm 25, going on 26 next month. Yeah. So I'm pretty young.
Congratulations with that.
Thank you. But yeah, so 3 other siblings, all of them older. And so I sort of feel like also I had to mature a little bit faster, because I had this family that were just all a bit ahead of me. You know, my next sister is 4 years older, then my brother's 9 years, and then my oldest sister is 11 years older. So it's quite a gap. And so I grew up in that sort of environment. And yeah, so obviously normal school lifestyle as a British kid living in the countryside. But then 18, my gap year, just like you Danes have a gap year, we have a gap year, and I just wasn't really sure what I wanted to do apart from enjoying entrepreneurship. And I had sort of a few sort of routes to go down. I had applied and gone through the whole process of working with IBM. I had like a job set up with a good salary, which, you know, was pretty competitive. It was, you know, going to these different competitive days where you had to sort of do these workshops with like 100 other candidates, and they would pick like 20 to move on from that. And it was like these phases, quite intense. And I got to the point where they offered me a job. And at the same time, I had, through my brother, got a contact in Dubai who has a film agency. And I always liked movies, cinema. I always enjoyed sort of the creative flow. I had tried to film a bit before in the UK. So I had tasted the waters or tested the waters. Yeah. And so I just thought, screw it. I'm going to ask him if I can just go out there, help him with his business wherever I can, if he pays for my flights, my accommodation, and just my living costs, just to get out of the countryside. I mean, I wanted to explore and try things. And so that's
when you say the countryside, of course, Britain is a lot bigger than Denmark, and a lot more people there. But how big of a city? How is it a city we know? Where are we at?
So it's the southwest. It's a village outside of a city called Bath, quite famous for its history, Roman history. But the village itself had about 500 people living in it, and it's like a proper English village that you would see in Downton Abbey. Super old school. I mean, we had a little post office. We had 3 pubs, you know, lots of countryside fields and stuff. Proper British. And now when I look back at it, you know, super charming. Really miss it. But of course, when you're growing up in the countryside like that, and you're fairly restricted to things like, you know, going to see your friends and, you know, doing different things on a casual evening, you kind of crave something more. And that's kind of when, you know, I had this opportunity in Dubai. He actually said yes to this crazy sort of offer. I mean, why would you say yes to this 18-year-old with no experience? I have no idea why. I think he just wanted to give me a shot, probably doing his friend, my brother, a favor. And
or maybe paying forward.
Yeah, that's maybe paying it forward. Yeah. Maybe. So then I sort of just, you know, packed off and left. Furthest place I've ever traveled before. And there I was, you know, this sort of skinny, pale, white English guy in the Middle East, you know, full of spots as a teenager, basically, arriving there with my suitcase. And it was a huge culture shock. And what was the craziest part was they were kind of on this scale phase where they had like 8 in the team in their little home office in like the 43rd floor in this huge high rise in Dubai, and they were like working with some of the world's biggest brands. And I thought, whoa, this is just insane. Like, they had just shot with the Pope like the week I got there, and they shoot for all sorts of brands like Will Smith, Netflix documentary, and when I was there, we did all sorts of crazy stuff like film for Audi, Rolls Royce, you know, Oman tourism, so all sorts of crazy things. And he basically just threw me in the deep end. He was like, yep, you're going to go shoot. Here's a camera. You're going to go shoot this event with Carlsberg. You're going to be the second camera operator.
The small customer.
Just crack on. And this is one of the big things I took from Tim, the guy that sort of mentored me, because he taught me that you can achieve so much from learning by sort of getting thrown in the deep end. And you either sink or you swim. So I spent 4 months out there just really learning the ropes. And then at the end of it, I was a full-time paid employee. I was shooting, I was editing. I really picked up the craft and really enjoyed it. But yeah, definitely had a flair for it. And so then he offered me a job. I was working out there, working on some sweet projects. And then at the same time, I had to choose sort of between IBM and staying in Dubai. And then this third option came into the mix. Such a lucky guy. Three options. Yeah, not many people are that lucky. But I had applied to university in Copenhagen. Completely different route. But that was in sort of respect for my heritage, and I wanted to maybe try the student lifestyle. And that was kind of the route I could potentially go down. So 4 months in, I was presented with 3 options. Mm-hmm. Job in England with IBM, mediocre salary, very corporate. Job in Dubai, probably double the salary, crazy exciting projects, you know, mental place to live when you're young. Mm-hmm. Or option 3, go and be a broke student in Copenhagen in a new country with no network, but off the off chance of exploring my heritage. And I mean, yeah, so that this is basically the kind of pivotal moment of my life, I think, where I had to kind of make a decision, and all three of those options, I think, would have led to very, very different routes of my life. And I'm so glad that I chose Copenhagen, because then I basically thought, screw it. I mean, Copenhagen sounds like a once in a lifetime opportunity, especially to study and be young as a student. It's a different experience, and I had a lot of FOMO from my friends in England that had studied. So I just literally went from Dubai to Copenhagen. I moved into a collegium. I moved into this Danish collegium with like 70 Danish students, and that was when it all began, the real test.
I have to ask. I really have to ask. When you are 18, 19 years old, I can understand going for a trip, but going for first of all a job in another country, but not only in another country, also in another continent.
Yeah,
where, all fairness to Dubai, it's not always the sweet stories coming from there, even though there's a lot of sweet stories. How did you feel? And for the sake, I'm also at that. How did your parents feel about it? Because that is not even a jump; that is a sprint, basically, that unfolds in 4 months.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think, I mean, at that point, I didn't know any better. I mean, I didn't know what was scary or not, because everything seemed scary at that age. So, I mean, I just saw it as adventure, and that's kind of, I had tunnel vision of this just sounds mental. And in a nice way, like, it was something that seemed like a no-brainer, and I just wanted to try something different and really explore. I know my parents, I think they probably wanted the same thing for me, so they didn't really have the same concerns, and I think it was just because we knew someone out there. It was someone that we knew that was inviting us. It's not like they were a stranger to my parents. They obviously knew the person. And as soon as they saw me thriving over there, like doing some huge projects that I wouldn't have had the chance to work on in the UK, like, it was such an opportunity. And to be honest, that whole trip essentially was the catalyst, the springboard to me launching my business in Copenhagen. Without the skills I learned in those 4-6 months, I wouldn't have been able to do what I do in Copenhagen now. So, game changer. And I think we all knew it when I was there. Sending these photos back to my parents and my family with the crazy things we were doing, it was kind of social proof, right?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. But you seem so calm and taking a decision when I look back, I'm obviously a little bit older, but when I look back, when I was 18, I didn't take any smart decisions. It was like rushed into it. It wasn't think through. It was just, let's do it. But you seemed so calm, and I have that vibe around you that you've always been like that. Was it like you made an assessment that said, this is a one-time opportunity? My brother can say that this guy is a good guy. I can leave my friends. I can leave my family. I can leave basically everything that I know. I can leave that because I have a good assessment about what I'm going into. Or what did you do? Because again, you're very calm. And that's, I have that belief you can tell me the truth or wrong, but I have that feeling that you are calm, like, through your life. Maybe not when you were very young, but the last 10 years at least. I have that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, but I think it's also, for me, I felt like there was nothing to lose. And I think I've often thought that to myself when it comes to a big decision. And big decisions are relative. I mean, as you get older and you go through more things in life, challenges become bigger, decisions become bigger, and you kind of grow with those. And so they always might seem big in the moment, and when you reflect back on it, it seems like a no-brainer or easy. But nonetheless, I think the point is, I've always just kind of looked at it like, is it what have I got to lose here? And I have always sort of been maybe inspired by, I definitely think my brother's had a big impact on me in that, if you take big risks and go all out and all or nothing kind of mentality, even though that could also be toxic to a degree.
Definitely, big stakes, big wins.
Yeah, and I also just think, like, when you're younger, it's, you have the least amount of responsibility, and as you get older, you're only going to get more responsibility. And so I've also just been aware of that, and I've tried to take I've tried to take big risks where I can, and I'm not constantly taking big risks, but I often do when I'm faced with the opportunity, reflecting on that and thinking, um, you know, what would someone that has nothing to lose do? And often, yeah, it's better to do it now than later. That's just always sort of been in the back of my head. Maybe because I've got older siblings who mostly all have kids and
Mhm.
houses and a lot more at stake. And at this stage, I've got no kids, and if shit if shit hits the fan, then it's not the end of the world. I mean, at least that's guided me through staying calm a lot of the time, I would say.
Makes perfect sense. Then the other question comes. You are
Yeah.
in beautiful, sunny Dubai. I know that you're a white guy and British and everything, but living probably the life. And I know that we love Denmark. We do. It's amazing country. We have the Lille Ravfru. We have a lot of H.C. Andersen and stuff like that. But what
Little
makes
Mermaid.
you go from the sunny beaches, the nice restaurants,
Mm.
the 42th floor of a nice high tower
Mm.
to Copenhagen?
Such a good question. I think, yeah,
Because a lot of
honestly,
things are like looking at moving to Dubai, and you
yeah,
went the other way around.
it's interesting, isn't it? And I think it's like what motivates you.
Mm.
For me, I wasn't in Dubai, for the low tax or necessarily the weather. I was there for the adventure. And when the opportunity presented itself to be in Copenhagen, to have a degree, which is, in Denmark, you're paid for a university degree. If you compare that to the UK, it's mental. Like in the UK, you pay like 100,000 kroner a year just to study.
Oh shit!
You're not paid to study, like S02.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with that into consideration and the fact that, again, it was like now or never kind of thing. Like, would I move to Copenhagen and try that, in 10 years? Probably not. I would have
No.
probably stayed in Dubai or gone to the UK. And so it was constantly like, where is the adventure? And I need to try things now. And if I don't do it now, it probably won't happen. And I knew that I could come back to Dubai. The Tim, my mentor and boss, the founder of the company, he even said to me, you know what, just you decide. But if you want to come back, you can always come back. There'll always be a job here for you, which definitely definitely helped the process, right?
Yeah.
I thought to myself I could probably go back if I wanted to. He'd probably find work for me. Um, but yeah, exploring the heritage was a big one as well. I mean,
Mm.
I know it makes my mum happy that I'm out in
Definitely.
Denmark. It makes her and I'm not doing it for her, but I know that it's almost like a closed loop for my family, that one of us has sort of ventured back into the Nordics and sort of discovered, because I'm discovering so much about this Danish culture that I just wasn't really taught about or educated. And it's like
Mhm.
kind of, and it sounds really cliche, but kind of discovering yourself in another way, because I am half Danish. It doesn't feel like I am, sadly, but the longer I live here, and the more sort of cultural things I pick up on, and then go back to my English family and sort of educate them on and tell them, there's something
Mhm.
magical about that. And so that definitely makes me want to stick around. And it definitely helps that I've now found a Danish missus and got a business here. So there's definitely things that keep you grounded. But yeah,
Yeah,
I think that sort of explains it.
makes sense. We jump back to where you are where you were in your life. So basically,
Mm.
we had that sunny, amazing job in Dubai, SU in Denmark, in Copenhagen. Which kind of school did you get into?
So this was another thing. So I applied to a school called Copenhagen Business School,
Yeah.
knowing that I liked the idea of business. And at that point, someone had told me that it was one of the top 10 schools for business in the world.
I
Um,
didn't know that.
and it was rated in like this list a few times. And so I was like, "Oof, if you're going to go to a business school, you got to go there, right? If it's in
Yeah.
Denmark." And I didn't actually have the grades for it. It was for the course that I wanted, and I wasn't expecting to get it. But I think I was offered it because of the experience in the year of traveling and working on different things. That gives you sort of a higher score. So that was kind of how I landed it, and came to the uni.
Hmm?
And at the same time, I'm not a classroom person. I prefer sort of, I've never really been a school person. I've never
Oh.
really been a bookworm. And when I was at the sort of back of the class, I realized, oh, it's not really for me.
I'm standing in the sun with the camera before, and now I'm sitting in the in the back row.
It was very different. I don't know what I was expecting, to be honest. I mean, it was very like suit and tie. It was very, theoretical. But I did it for the experience, and I did it for the, I guess, network. I mean, it was a lot of fun at the same time. I mean, bachelor degree era is always a lot of fun, at least the first year or so. But honestly, I spent a lot of these lectures just sat at the back building this idea for the business and what it would look like, how it would sound, who would be the first customers. And so that was kind of how the business started in those first few months of getting here, trying to do both things, like a classic entrepreneur, school and business.
You have to, you don't have to risk it all. You have to risk a little bit. But you came from Dubai with that camera feeling. You had tried the nice, good cameras and everything, sitting in the back row. And now we are getting closer and closer to actually starting this business. And of course, I think people can hear that we are talking about something with the cameras. So what did you learn from that experience down there in Dubai? And I'm pretty sure that you didn't get the cameras with you. So what were you looking for in equipment to get started, and what did you want to do with the camera? Because there's a lot of things you can do with the camera today.
Yeah, so true. So this is actually quite funny. So when I got here, and of course I qualified for S02 because I'm half Danish and all that sort of stuff, I managed to find a really cheap collegium. So my costs were pretty low. And this collegium actually is quite a funny story. The collegium I stayed at is called Firmaet Collegium, and to be able to live there in Copenhagen, you have to have an ancestor who fought in the Danish resistance against the Nazis. And my morfar, who's Danish, of course, he fought against the Nazis, and he was in Holger as like a resistance group.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got really cheap rent and lived there, but then of course everyone is proper Danish, so huge shock to the system. And when I was there, I basically started to see my bank account grow with this S02. And then at that same time, it was COVID that basically was just about to hit. And then they had those S02 loans. So I basically scrambled together whatever S02 I could and put it into my first camera. And
what did you buy?
And I bought this sort of 2013 Sony FS700, it's called. It's from, we're talking 15 years old almost. And it was pretty cheap. It's like 10,000 kroner. But I bought it because it's massive. It is like the size of, a proper documentary camera. I think I've got it tattooed here. It's like an exact picture.
Holy shit, yeah, I can see.
It's like a big camera. And I bought that because if I'm going to look the part and look like I've just come from the Middle East from an agency, I need to have a massive fucking camera. And that's basically the idea, that the perspective. So then I had this huge camera and a big tripod. Didn't have much more kit than that. And then I was basically sat in the back of this lecture hall emailing all these startups that I could find, saying, can I film for free? Can I film for free? Because you need to build up a network and build up a portfolio. And that's the initial sort of challenging part of the industry. But, when I would rock up to these shoots, I would look quite young, but then I would have this massive camera. So they're like, whoo, he means his business. And it's not like you're turning up with those small, packages, those small camera packages. So that was like the idea, the initial investment, and it definitely helped and made me look the part on some of these bigger sets that I could squeeze my way into.
Holy shit. Okay, so we are out there now, still sitting on the back row, emailing a lot of businesses in Denmark.
Yeah.
COVID is soon to hit. Everything is like scrambling around, living in a low rent because of a great morfar, and then like building something, working for free. When did you see that now when did you, as a creative entrepreneur, that is something that we are facing a lot in Denmark, that we have a lot of creatives who can't jump into it because that tipping point, where is it? When did you know that you hit that tipping point where I need a CVR number, I need to actually get paid for what I do? When did you hit that? Because that is what I hear in the ecosystem. That is the difference from creative entrepreneurs. They don't know when, or they can't find it.
Yeah, and I also think a lot of creatives struggle with the business side in general. I mean, I see so many creatives, photographers, videographers that wish they could just do the creative side of it. And I think for me, I've like I said, I've always been in the business part of it. I've always enjoyed the business part. I used creating content and shooting video production as my medium to get to where I want to go because I'm good at it. It's a skill I have, and also I enjoyed it. So then, when you put those two together with a business mentality, it's sort of kind of a win-win. But I mean, I set the CVR up straight away. Like as soon as I was sitting in the library at this collegium, and I'm not a massively creative person when it comes to words, but I was like sketching out a different sort of name for the company, and then I was like, let's just call it VMI Films or something. So then I landed on 4V Films as our first sort of business, which was the video focused kind of agency that we still run today. It's been going for the last 5 years, and the first few gigs, I mean, so we sent like 100 emails out offering free productions. 60% of them maybe didn't get back to us. Maybe 70% never wrote back to me. 30% would say, yeah, sure, let's have a meeting. 20% of them wouldn't show up. And then you'd be left with 5-10% that were actual conversations. And maybe 3 or 4 of them turned into actual video productions. And that's just the power of numbers. But those were the first few productions we did. I say we. It was me. It was just me and a camera trying to help these startups. But it was in that moment that I realized I really enjoy working with founders, working closely with founders, seeing the impact a great piece of content can do for a brand, seeing how that drives their growth and seeing the smile on their face. It was like, wow, okay, hold on. I didn't feel this way when I would deliver a video to Carlsberg or to Rolls Royce. It wasn't the same feeling.
You didn't meet the founder.
No, and it was, for them another day in the office. They probably get millions of those every day. So different kind of feeling. And then I sort of chased that. And that was our kind of mission from there to help these smaller brands. I mean, say smaller, just brands that aren't as big as those, giants, access content and access great quality content. And that was kind of where the mission was born. And I think it just sort of started to create a bit of word of mouth. And I got my first 1 or 2 paid gigs through CBS. Nice. And then there was a bit of a word of mouth level to it, and I was doing more and more outreach, and I set up a website, and then there was just a few gigs a month at that point, and that kind of can keep a sole founder going. But it was really just as I started to get that off the ground, have the first few paid gigs, COVID slams me in the face. Shitty time to have a service-based business, really.
At that time, were you still in school as well?
Yeah, I was still doing the bachelor degree. I guess I was so this was 2020. So 2019, we launched it. I keep saying we because now we are we. Yeah. I launched it in 2019. 2020, COVID hits. And then I'm sort of back to square one. So then I put the whole business on hold. And I meet my girlfriend and have a great summer. And then COVID gets a bit more relaxed, and then we're like, right, let's try and play with this more. Still midway through the bachelor degree, and so kind of juggling the two things. And my dorm room, which was like 15 square meters of space, was just slowly collecting more and more equipment, and a desk with laptop for editing. It was like this whole office, living, sleeping, eating in this office. And then trying to balance it with
really startup-like. Like it couldn't get more startup-like. The only thing you need is a basement.
Oh man, you should hear the Coho story when we launched the studio.
Yeah.
Do you know that story?
No, come with it.
So then, fast forward to 2023, we've grown our agency 4V Films to about 3 or 4 employees, and we're doing bigger productions now with brands like DTU, GoMore, Pleo. So it's going somewhere.
Yeah.
But then we realized this classic issue with the industry. And that issue is that every brand needs to make great quality content, and they have to do it regularly. But the paradox to that is that most brands can't afford to do that regularly, or they don't have the time, or they find it overwhelming to do. And so they are stuck in this, stage where they can't win. And that is where we had the idea for Coho, where we would make this membership-focused studio where a brand could become a member, and we give them unlimited quality productions over a whole year. And the idea there is to give them high quality, high value content regularly. And if we tick all those boxes, then suddenly they're going to be, way more competitive than others. They're going to be standing out way more than others, and create what we call this digital impact, which is a term I've been talking about for years. Every brand wants a digital impact, when they're known, liked, trusted, remembered.
Of course.
And so,
sorry,
yeah.
I have to interrupt, because when you're saying that, I can remember that I had you on the phone one day where you were talking about it.
Yeah, Coho.
Yeah, and you were talking about you want to build this, and you did it.
Yep. But so the way we this is the thing. So we had the idea for it, and it sounds amazing, right? Build this beautiful, big, modern studio, fill it with equipment and amazing photographers and videographers, and then say, right, brands, come and pay for a year membership with us. It's going to be unlimited. We can shoot as much as you want. Let's go. And it sounds like a dream, but actually there's huge costs involved in setting something like that up, and a huge kind of social proof barrier you have to overcome. And especially with Danes, you guys are very, very risk adverse. And to convince you of a product like this,
that was a very good way to say it.
So this was the initial sort of first sort of bump in the road, and we knew that we had the equipment and we had the crew, but we didn't have a studio, and we had no funding, no investors, and we initially kind of had the idea of trying to raise investment, but then we were rejected via VC, and instead with the idea we thought, screw it, let's build an MVP and turn our apartment into a studio. And so that idea came from, I was just baffling in my head, usually you have tunnel vision, you have an idea and you can only see it one way, which is this big, glorious studio, 700,000 meters squared, lovely, right in the center of Copenhagen. It's going to be amazing, right next to a bloody magazine. And then you kind of only see it one way. But then I was just walking around my apartment. My girlfriend was watching TV, and then I was just looking at the space, and it's quite a small little living room. And I was like, could we get a camera in here? Could we put some lights up in here? Like, how would that look? And then I started to think about it, and then I started to go and take photos of it, and then draw on the photos and think, how would it look? Where would the camera go? And what could you do in the room? And then we were like, it could work. Let's try it. So then we basically decided, yep, let's turn this living room and our dining room, which is about 30, maybe 40 square meters in total, into Coho 1.0 studio. And
I have to ask, is your girlfriend also an entrepreneur? Or is she a part of
so for the year before that, so when we met, she sort of started to tag along part-time on 4V Films. Yeah. And then at this point was going all full-time with me on 4V Films. And when we were talking about Coho, I basically had to kind of convince her that it would work in the apartment. And then we thought, this would be the perfect way of testing it, really low cost. But this is what I mean by a proper startup story, because we were literally for 6 months, from May to October 2023, we were shooting every day in our apartment. We had about 20 brands try this concept, coming in and out, shooting from 9 to 5, and then, converting it back to living in it, being able to chill in it for the evening. And then in the morning, hoovering, because we have a dog as well. So we have to
of course.
hoover up all the hairs and get everything presentable, not only to shoot, but then also to run tours for leads. Yeah. It was like a really intense thing. And then the other end of the apartment, we had converted the other end into an office. So we were office and studio with our team. It was like a whole proper bootstrap thing that would only be possible with a bit of flexibility from me and the missus. So it worked out, but it was, a grind. And from doing that, 20 brands tested it, gave us feedback. It was so cheap at that point. We were charging like 10K for 3 months of unlimited content creation.
Holy shit, that's cheap.
Yeah, and doing all sorts of things. And we made some really cool content considering it was in a living room. And then from there, November, we finally got to the end of the 6 months. And we're like, we can't do this anymore. There has to be a stop date here. And we decided to build the wait list and find a space that we thought could be cool. And we found the current studios where Coho is now, about 200 square meters in a studio in Frederiksberg. And we thought, this is a cool place. Let's announce to the world that we're going to launch 5 spots in this location. And so we built over 6 weeks a wait list of about 50 to 60 brands that were interested. And we only had 5 spots. and we said that we were going to release them on the 11th of November at 9 a.m. First come, first serve. And we had this sort of pipeline where we were emailing them and texting them and nurturing them. And we had no idea what to expect. People signaled interest, but you know how that is. Someone says, "Oh, that sounds cool," but will they actually want to buy a membership? And at that point, we priced it at, I think, 25,000 kroner for a year of unlimited content creation. So we're talking what, 2,000 kroner a month of, think about it, unlimited access to studios, equipment, crew. Like it was robbery. We call it daylight robbery in England.
Yeah, definitely.
And so we were in our home office, us four, gathered around our computers, clicking refresh. As soon as it hit 9 o'clock, refresh. Who's buying it? We sent the email out expecting nothing. We didn't think anyone would buy it. We had no idea. And then within 3 minutes, all 5 spots completely sold out.
Holy shit.
And we were like, what? We just raised...
What is that feeling like? Like, no expectation, and then, boom. How is that feeling?
We were shocked, to be honest. To be honest, I've never raised that much money. I've never seen that much money like that, being raised within... We never had a sale that was above 100K. I mean, the biggest sale we had at that point might have been 50, 80K. So suddenly, within 3 minutes, 125,000 kroner in our bank account. And we were like, there's our funding. We don't need VCs. We don't need angels. We can do this on our own. It was just the power of building hype and also having a cool product, I think, that maybe stands out a bit more than others. And so we basically just thought, wow, okay, now we can put down the deposit for the studio. Now we can put some more stuff in there. Because at that point, we kind of said, yeah, we're going to get this place, but we hadn't actually put the money down. And so finally, we had the money to secure it. And then we had about a week or 2 weeks to get in there, furnish the place, get it ready for members to come in and shoot. And so it was like, a hectic 2 weeks. We were having to put up curtains and sew curtains. We were, long nights, lots of pizza, really intense. But then we were, by end of November, had about 5-10 brands already shooting with us. And that was where it all began. So then a year later, which is basically now, a year and 3 months later, we're at about 30 members, all paying annually, and slowly thinking about, this year, getting into bigger studios, expanding into a bigger capacity, and it's just starting to sort of take off. But that first year was a real grind, because it was just convincing people of the concept and convincing people that we weren't full of shit and that we are making great content here. And now that you have, when you get to 30 brands, people start to talk.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's how it's been going.
If you should put 3 moments in your short career for now as an entrepreneur... Oh, wait, before that, did you finish your degree?
So I finished the bachelor, and then, of course, there was the master's, but then I dropped out of the master's. Classic. Dropped out the master's, I think it was just the year before we launched Coho. Or just before we launched Coho, and that my parents were not happy about. I can tell you that much. They were, "You're so stupid," it's or not.
You're so close.
It's fair. I mean, you're getting this for free out there. I mean, it's you just crack on, finish the masters, and it was like a trade off. I mean, I know masters takes a lot more energy and focus, right? And it's I wasn't really in it for the label. I was in it for the experience, and I felt like I had got it at that point, and it was time to just crack on.
Yeah. But back to the 3 things. If you should pick 3 moments where you were like, that was make it or break it moments for you in your startup career, it's like, of course, you make the misses who were willing to refurbish your apartment day in and day out. I think that could be a moment. But if you should pick 3 moments that defined where you are today, which 3 moments would that be?
Yeah, it's a good question.
That's also very big questions, by the way.
Yeah. I would say one of them is definitely getting out of that tunnel vision and realizing that you can bootstrap something in different creative ways. I don't know. I think it's a human trait to just sort of be locked into one certain type of vision and not see that there's several steps that can happen before that. Like I said, the big idea was big, beautiful 1,000 square meters right in the city center. But there's loads of things you can do before that. For example, start in the apartment, bootstrap it, get the sort of proof of concept. And so that was my, I would say, big lesson, probably biggest lesson, having this MVP mindset. And I've carried that forward throughout the last year and a half of building Coho. You know, we regularly really seek our members' feedback, you know, constantly after every shoot. We send them a survey after, you know, every sort of quarter. We try and reach out to them and ask what's happening, and always trying to learn. And with 4V Films, I was never doing that. I was never asking for feedback. I was never, you know, seeking that growth. So that's been a big lesson.
Is it
what
two
else?
different companies now, or is it?
Well, 4V Films owns Coho.
Okay, yeah.
Coho is kind of like a product of 4V, mostly because we still do 4V productions every now and then, with some of the same repeat customers. And it would be, if it was two separate companies, we'd have to then split the equipment somehow, and that would be a nightmare. So yeah, but the other two I can't really think of. I think, yeah, the MVP mindset's been a game changer for us. I think that taking big risks and realizing sometimes that you've got nothing to lose. I mean, that's been good for me. And I know some people have more to lose than others, and I understand that. So, but for me, at the stage I'm at now, I think I try and carry that with me, and that's always been something that's helped. And I guess this idea of being balanced. I mean, you know, I said earlier that sort of, you know, things are always, the challenges you face are always relative to where you are in your life, like how you perceive those challenges. You know, the challenges I have now, in 5 years, I'll look back at them and think, peanuts, you know, what was he stressed about? And I think thinking that way also, and just understanding that things could be worse, especially as an entrepreneur in Denmark, right? I mean, it's with a country like this, you are looked after, so it's not so scary to take such big risks. And I think the point is, just as an entrepreneur, that you kind of have to, because you're rewarded for the risk, and that's kind of why you become an entrepreneur in the first place, right?
Big risk, big wins. That is a very, very big part of the game. Another question though. When we look, you are in, like, when I had Startup Central and today as well, I can see that first things first, you foreigners are like more into starting a business. You are more risk taking. You are more like, we can do it. Maybe it's in our inheritance when you come from countries where it's like normal that the father or the mother are like entrepreneurs. But being a foreigner in Denmark, and at the same time being a creative startup person, what will be your biggest advices? Because I was out making a lecture for a school where there were like 100 non-Danes, foreigners, sitting there, and they were like having a lot of questions. Were like, shit, I haven't thought about that. What will be your biggest wishes for them to take as quests when they want to start it?
As in start the business or move to Denmark?
They are in Denmark, so starting a business in Denmark as a foreigner. Yeah.
Well, I genuinely think, especially in Copenhagen, it's a really easy country to start a business in. Everyone can speak English really well, and we've done everything in English since day one. So I don't think that's ever been an issue. It's actually been quite easy. So that's the first thing. I wouldn't be worried about that. I think the biggest challenge, because when I first moved here and I was building a business and trying to network, so many networking events and groups, it was just in Danish. And my experience of it used to be that, you know, I would get rejected from groups because I didn't speak Danish, and my posts would get sort of declined because it wasn't in Danish. And the issue with that is there is a bit of a sort of shield that's kind of up, and like guard is up in the entrepreneurial sort of network, where a lot of things are in Danish and isn't so much in English, and that is changing slowly. But when I was here in the early days, you know, 2020, trying to network, it was tough. And so I launched this Facebook group where we would do these free events for expat entrepreneurs. And over the last few years, it's grown to about 1,000, 2,000 different people. So there was a demand for these events. And so I think that's going to be the biggest thing. It's you feel like you're not progressing because the networking side is tough. I think we just need to be more proactive as expats and Danes together to do more things in English together, because I also think the Danes are missing out on a lot of talent and creative. You know, there's a lot of energy
100%.
that's in the international side, but like I said, that's changing slowly. More groups are doing things in English. There's more events in English. But I just think, trying to build the network and not being afraid to tap into the fact that you are foreign. I mean, I've definitely benefited because I'm British. I mean, it makes me stand out in a Danish market.
Definitely.
You know, I don't know whether it's the accent or the crooked teeth, but it might be
You
either or, maybe a mixture. But I think, it definitely is a strength, if anything, right? You stand out and you've got to lean on that. And in fact, I hire a lot of internationals in my team, not because I've deliberately done that. It's just maybe because we've naturally attracted them. I mean, we have Danes too, but we have a bunch of expats working at Coho.
You connect, of course, with people who look like yourself. How many?
Yeah, exactly.
How many
it's
are
true.
you in your team now?
We are 8 in the team.
Nice.
And I can tell you the nationality. So we have an Indian, we have an Italian, we have a Ukrainian, we have a Czech, we have a 2 Danes. Yes, we have a big mixture. And it's a lot of fun, but I also just think that it kind of you do gravitate towards each other. But what I'm realizing is there's so much talent that's expat orientated that don't speak Danish, and I think more Danes could see that and tap into that, because hardworking expats are hardworking.
Yeah.
They are ambitious and driven, and not saying Danes aren't, but of course to move to another country, there is an element of drive that you kind of have to have, right, to make it work.
You also have to fight harder because, as you said, you don't have the network, so you have to. I think less Danes will do a lot for free to build a portfolio, where you as a foreigner see it as the only opportunity to show something for a Dane. That is why you should believe in me. Where a Dane will be like, I know this guy or this woman, that they have a trust in me, I can do that shit.
Definitely.
So I think you have to fight harder for it when you're a foreigner. But time is also close to running up. So you have a minute to prepare for your minute on commercial for yourself. And you also get the chance to think about another foreign startup guy, girl in Denmark I should reach out to and see if I can get him or her to join the podcast. Because that only popped up now, so that is unfair for me. So to bring it up because it popped up for me now, that I think we should have more like from that side of it into it. So you get a minute or two to prepare that. I will say something in Danish, and then I will jump back for you. Folket, tusind tak, fordi I lytter med. Tak, fordi I har været med i 1,5 år nu. Lidt over 50 episoder. Over 1000 lyttere hver gang. Jeg er simpelthen så glad for det. Husk at like videoerne. Husk at følge på YouTube. Bliv ved med at sende mig beskeder med ting, som I kunne tænke jer, at vi tager med. Det er simpelthen så værdsat, og jeg takker 1000 gange for det. Vi forsøger altid at forbedre lyd, billeder og det hele. Men det synes jeg bare, I skulle sige. Og selvfølgelig 1000 tak til Data Peeps for at sponsorere den her podcast. Bates, we could start with the 1 minute of commercial, or you can start with the person that I should reach out to. You decide.
Probably need a little longer just to think of the person, because I want to give you a good recommendation.
Perfect.
But I can start with the minute. I mean, so Coho, we run a content studio for brands to access great quality content, and we're on a mission to make really great quality content accessible. And so how we've done that is we've built a membership, an annual membership, where a brand can come to us, become a member for a year, and we can shoot as much quality content as you would like in our studios in Copenhagen. So we're talking videography, photography, podcasts. Right now we have about 30 members across all sorts of industries, from food, fashion, tech. So we've got brands like Wuffeli, we've got brands like Wolfpack, Altil Energi, all sorts of cool brands, and they're all just smashing the content, making a lot more than they used to, and seeing some really incredible results. So if you're interested in booking a tour with me, I can show you around our space. Just message me on LinkedIn at Patrick Bates, or check out our website, which is coho.dk.
Nice.
Got a Danish at the end.
You promised to sprinkle.
once or twice.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
Started.
Yeah, exactly. And guys, it's in a digital world where social media feels more than it ever done before, and it probably just keep growing. I think make quality content will make you stand out. That's for sure.
Definitely.
Because a lot of people make shit content even though they have a very, very good message, but because the content isn't good enough, it falls through.
This is the thing. And if you can just do three things, make great quality, make great value, and do it consistently. And if you can do those three things as any brand, you have much higher chances of growing faster, standing out, and making an impact. So this is sort of our mantra that we push quite often.
Makes sense.
I have a expat that you should speak to.
Cool. Who should I reach out to?
You should reach out to Pedro Costa. He is an expat entrepreneur, and he is an innovator, a really cool guy. He's built a brand called Oracle. It's not the Oracle you're thinking of, but it's essentially kind of like headphones for people on the go, where you can be completely 100% aware of your surroundings, so you can hear the surroundings as well. And it creates music, and the sound in the headphones goes straight through the vibrations through the bones of your skull. So it's quite innovative, brand new sort of concept, and I can see him doing really well. So I've also spoken to him on a podcast before. Really sweet guy, really easy to talk to, and just a cool expert entrepreneur that was on top of mind.
I will definitely reach out to him. Patrick, thank you very much for using your Friday afternoon with me. That is amazing, and I wish you all the best, man.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you for having me.
Of course.